Hello YouTube and welcome back to another video. Now today I'm doing a tier list video. We haven't done one of these in a while. Today we're going to be ranking the easiest ghosts to identify to the hardest ghost to identify in Phasmophobia without evidence items. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. And anyway, let's get into this. So S tier is going to be the hardest to identify. D tier is going to be the easiest to identify. The first ghost we're going to be starting off today is going to be a Hantu. Now, I'm going to be putting Hantu in C tier for now. Again, we might switch this up later on in the video, but for now, to start off, we're going to put it in a solid C tier. The reason I'm putting Hantu in C tier, now, honestly, Hantus are really easy to identify in Phasmophobia. On no evidence, I don't really tend to use the whole cold breath coming out the mouth with the breaker off thing. I tend to just really work it out via listening to the ghost. If it's fast in the ghost room, which is always colder, Hantus are fast in cold and slow in warm temperatures. I tend to just listen. If the ghost starts off really fast in the hunt and then instantly slows down when it hits hot temperature, then that's a Hantu. Also, Hantus don't have line of sight build up, so they are very easy to identify in hunts. However, outside of hunts, on no evidence, they are basically impossible to work out. There's no way of really working it out unless they turn on the breaker. Hantus can't turn on the breaker because they can't use their special ability. So that's a very rare thing to happen though. I tend to have the breaker on anyway. So if that was to happen, then obviously you can rule out Hantu before a hunt. But generally you have to wait for a hunt, and that's the only reason why I'm not putting it in D tier. But it's very easy to identify compared to other ghosts. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is an Oni. And I'm actually also... Oh, it's kind of tempting to put in B tier. I'm going to put it in C tier as well. I might switch this around, but I'm going to put Oni in C tier for now, simply because I often rule out Oni pretty early in the game. Basically, if you get an airball event or a mist form, that it's called in the game, then you can instantly rule out an Oni, and this is quite a common ghost event to happen. So if you ever see this little white ball flying towards you at the start of a game, or at any point in the game, which is a ghost event, you can instantly rule out an Oni there and then. Now, obviously, outside of that, Onis are very visible in hunts. So when it comes to hunts, super easy to work out. They are just extremely visible. They get this like I mean, you do kind of have to be looking out for it, to be fair. But you basically look for this like quad blink that it does. It's just visible basically constantly for like 4 full blinks. And that's how I generally find out an Oni. In hunts, they are very easy to identify. I wouldn't say they're as easy to identify as like a phantom, for example, but Onis, visibility wise, but Onis are very easy to identify in a hunt just by watching them. If they're super visible, it's an Oni. If it's not normal blinks, then yeah, it's either going to be visible or not visible. Not visible is phantom, very visible is Oni, easy to identify. I will say Oni is going in C tier because you might not get ghost airball events. So you then have to worry about the hunt and how it acts in a hunt. And that can be quite hard to work out sometimes unless you're really looking for it. So yeah, Oni solid C tier. The next ghost we are going to be talking about is the the Deogen. Now, so the thing is, I want to put Deo straight in D tier simply because of how easy it is to identify when a hunt begins. The most easy ghost to identify in a hunt, hands down, goes to a Deo. However, the only way you work out a Deo outside of a hunt, and this might be controversial. You may tell me, okay, Casson, what are you talking about? But personally, from my experience, Deos seem to just act weird. Like, I have identified Deos just from the ghost doing things that just seem strange. Now, obviously, I haven't confirmed the identification until the hunt, but in my perspective, they just do seem to act strange compared to other ghosts. Like they might switch rooms like all the time, and then like event in a room nowhere near, but then I don't know, throw an item in a random spot, but then I don't know, they just seem to act weird from my experience. If I find a ghost is acting weird but not solidly another ghost, I'm like, is this ghost acting weird? It might be a Deo. But during a hunt, Deos are very easy. They simply just always know where you are. They sprint you as fast as they can, and when they get close to you, they turn into little snails and they walk really slowly, and and you instantly know it's a Deo. So yeah, for that reason, I'm actually going to stick it in D tier just for how easy it is to identify in a hunt, but we'll see how the other ghosts go. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is a Jinn. Now, Again, Jinn is a ghost that I do identify pretty easily, especially if you get a breaker turn off in the game. I'm going to put Jinn in B tier for now, simply because if the breaker doesn't go off at all, then you have to rely on a hunt to work out a Jinn. Now, this is applying to no evidence where you've got a breaker enabled. If in the scenario you've got no breaker, like Apocalypse 3, this is an S tier. The hardest ghost to identify in the game. In fact, it is the hardest ghost to identify in the game in APOC 3. However, talking about general no evidence with the breaker on, usable even, Jinn is in B tier. Basically, Jinn has an ability where when the breaker's on, it's fast. Like, it's normal speed ghost, right? But then as soon as you see it, and it's quite far away from you, as soon as it sees you, it will instantly sprint fast. Like a Revenant in a way, but not quite as fast as Revenant. It will instantly be fast, and then when it gets close to you, it will slow back down to normal ghost speed. But then it also has a line of sight build-up element to it as well. So once it slows down to your speed, it then will slowly build up speed. So the more you're looping it, the more it can see, the longer it can see you for. You basically got to think about a Jinn. Imagine the amount of time a ghost sees you during a hunt is the amount of time it adds line of sight build up, like any normal ghost, right? However, if a Jinn's really far away and it's sprinting towards you, by the time it gets you, if you were miles away, it might have built up that line of sight build up time long enough to actually be really fast by the time it gets you. So you need to be slightly wary about that. But yeah, Jinn, I would probably put in B tier, simply because if the breaker goes off, you can instantly rule out a Jinn. This happens in a lot of my games. If the breaker doesn't go off, you have to kind of do a little loop for the ghost. So yeah, it's going to go in a solid B tier for now. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is a poltergeist. Now, with the new update, I have been struggling with polties a bit, but I'm going to put it in B tier. Poltergeists, since new update, they are still very obvious in hunts, don't get me wrong. Like, they still do chuck stuff a lot. However, there has actually been a game or two where I have struggled to get poltergeist for a few hunts. Because since new update, they basically, when the ghost is chasing you, ghosts just seem to pick up multiple items at once and chuck them, and that can be really off-putting. Now, the thing you've got to look out for a poltergeist is that when you are looping it around a table or something and there's loads of items on the table, it will, when it like statically chucks stuff, not floats and chucks stuff, it will just chuck it with so much force that it's like, yeah, that's a poltergeist. So if you do, like, I like to do maybe a couple of hunts for poltergeists now, because they do seem to be a little bit more difficult to identify since Chronicle came out. I would say they are still pretty easy to identify. And obviously, if you get a Poltiplosion, there's 3 types of Poltiplosions now. There's the lifting up multiple items and dropping them. There's the lifting up multiple items and throwing them. And then there's just the original Poltiplosion, which is just exploding all the items. So if you get that, then you obviously know it's a poltergeist. Obviously, with all these ghosts, you've got to listen out for it. You've got to make sure it's not a mimic, of course. But yeah, I think poltergeist is going to go in B tier. It used to be probably an easy C tier because hunts were so easy, but now hunts have become a little bit tricky. So I'm going to put it in B tier for now. Okay, the next ghost we're going to be talking about is the Thaye. Now, again, I think I'm going to put this also in C tier on no evidence. Simply because sometimes it's quite easy to get Thaye mixed up with like a Raiju. If you've got electronics nearby and the ghost hunts early, I have actually got a Thaye wrong to a Raiju a few times. So you need to be a bit careful about that. Obviously, Thays over time, if you spend time near them or in the ghost room, they age over time and they become slower. And also the fact they've got, in a hunt, no line of sight build up. So that's actually quite an easy way of working out a Thaye. Basically, if you're looping it in a hunt and it's not speeding up, it can only be a Thaye or a Hantu at that point. So yeah, Thaye is probably going to go in C tier. Obviously, you can get hunted really early game. So if you start the game on, let's say, 75% sanity, a Thaye can basically hunt you off the bat, and so can a demon. And they're the only 2 that can hunt you off the bat unless you speak to the ghost. So a Yokai can hunt at 80% sanity if you speak to it. I obviously play a lot of solos. I don't speak to the ghost when I'm playing no evidence. So Thaye is probably going to go in a solid C tier, because if it instantly hunts and it's fast, it's a Thaye. Simple as. Or a Raiju if you've got electronics already on the ground early game. But yeah, Thaye is going to go in a solid C tier. Very easy to identify in a hunt. No line of sight build up. And you can just walk the Thaye through to the ghost room. And if it's not speeding up in the ghost room, then you know it's not Hantu and it can only be a Thaye. Because a Hantu would obviously be fast in the ghost room because it's colder there. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is a Mare. Now, I'm going to have to put Mare in A or S tier. I'm going to whack it in A tier. I'm going to whack it in A tier for now. There's one ghost that obviously goes well above Mare, which we'll get onto later. But Mares can be really difficult to identify when it is a Mare. If it's any other ghost, if you get a light switch turn on in the ghost room, then you can instantly rule out a Mare, which is sometimes really easy and quick to get, but sometimes a nightmare to get, especially if it is a Mare. It can be really hard to identify a Mare in no evidence. Basically, you've got the Mare ability, so if you flick on a light switch when a Mare is close enough to the light switch, it has a chance of instantly flicking it down within like 0.5 seconds. So that's one way of working out a Mare, but you've got to remember some other ghosts just flick the light at that moment. So I don't really like to leave a game unless I get multiple Mare abilities, just to be sure. I've actually had a Goryo once that did like hidden ghost events. Both 2 times in one game when I flicked a light on, it instantly flicked it off because of the ghost event that was not visible or audible. So you've got to be a bit careful that other ghosts can flick off light switches. But yeah, in general, also Mares can also change rooms. They seem to change rooms so much. So they apparently flee light. So if you've got lights on in the room, they tend to like run away to a darker room. But to be honest with you, I just find they just roam loads. I've identified Mares before simply because of how much they roam, and they can be very difficult to identify. The only reason I'm not putting it S tier is because there's one ghost in particular that's going in S tier for most difficult ghosts to work out. But yeah, Mares are pretty hard to work out. There's been lots of times where I've been struggling with Mares, especially in a basement scenario when it's already broken the lights. It's so hard to work out a Mare. So yeah, for that reason, Mares going in A tier. They are impossible to work out in a hunt. They are exactly the same as all other ghosts in hunts, and they've got normal like line of sight build up and everything. And then outside of hunts, you basically just got to hope you get a light switch turn on, and if you don't get a light switch turn on, then you basically have to hope for a Mare ability. So flick on the lights in the room and hope that it instantly flicks down, and maybe do that multiple times to be sure. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is a Banshee. Now, since Chronicle update, Banshees have become definitely more difficult. It would definitely be a C tier. I didn't know how Banshees were going to play until Chronicle came out, because obviously they got the ability to change rooms. So that actually has made it, in my opinion, more difficult to work out Banshees in most scenarios. Banshee's going to go in B tier because normally if a ghost changed rooms, you could instantly rule out a Banshee. Now you can't do that. So Banshees will roam to you. If you're on the same floor as them, they will roam to you. And this is quite an easy thing to work out. They roam to you quite frequently. So if you whack down a motion sensor miles away from the ghost room, as long as you're on the same floor, you'll notice the Banshee will walk to you and wander back to the room over and over again. Their target. If you're playing with friends, it will also only roam to the target. So my best advice for Banshees is to always stand as far away as possible from the ghost room, on the same floor as it, whack down a motion sensor in the room with you, between the door and you, and if the ghost roams through it, stays there for 6 seconds, roams back, then it's probably going to be a Banshee. It could also be a Phantom, but Phantoms will teleport to you and then roam back. Wraiths will also teleport to you and then roam back as well. But yeah, also Banshee, you can get the Banshee Scream. They've now got 20 different Banshee Screams in Phasmophobia, so loads of different ones to get now, and they have a 33% chance of leaving a Scream. So realistically, if you've got a parabolic microphone out and you wait long enough, you're gonna, I mean, if you get like 10 whispers, at that point you've got to be like, right, it's not going to be a Banshee. So yeah, I don't really worry too much with Banshees. They're also probably one of the most interesting ghosts in the game. And yeah, that's basically the way to identify Banshees. They can change rooms now, but they will roam to you and then roam back to you. I'd say they're pretty easy to identify. In a hunt, they are completely normal. There's nothing interesting, so I'm going to whack it in a B tier. The next ghost we are going to be talking about is a Yurei. Now, Yurei's going in A tier, if not close to, like, between A and S tier. Yureis have become really tricky since the Chronicle. Everyone's still trying to work out what a Yurei ability is. Now, I think I've got it down. I think a Yurei ability is a slow door close. Every other ghost can slam doors now, but Yurei's is a slow, like, slam door. So if you see a ghost slowly close a door and then that delayed slam noise, it has to be a slow close though, then that's a Yurei ability. However, if a ghost slams a door, that just slams the door, smacks the door closed, then it is not necessarily a Yurei ability. It could still be a Yurei though, but that's not the Yurei ability. Also, the other thing that they've done since the update, I believe, from my testing, is that Yureis will always keep doors either fully open or fully closed. So if a door is slightly ajar by the ghost, then you can instantly rule out a Yurei. I've actually found this with not only normal doors, but cabinets as well. From my testing, I found Yureis will always keep cabinets fully open and doors fully open or fully closed. So yeah, that's another thing to work out for Yurei. So yeah, they are definitely hard to identify. It's basically down to getting a Yurei ability. There's no other way of working out Yurei. It's really hard to identify. They are, I think, more difficult than Mares. I'm almost tempted to put them in S tier because it's all down to the Yurei ability at the end of the day, and maybe like a door half opens and closes. It's definitely more difficult to identify than a Mare, I think, in the new update. Potentially, especially if you're on a map with no doors. Oh my word, if you're on a map like Point Hope and you're halfway up and you've got no doors on that floor, awful. Absolutely awful. And if you're on like a big room map like basketball court on Brownson High School or something, or the cafeteria on Prison, that can be a nightmare to get a Yurei ability. So yeah, Yurei ability is going to stay as a very high A tier, potentially even S tier. The next ghost we're going to talk about is a Revenant. Now, Revenant has to be in C tier, if not D tier. Revenants are one of the easiest ghosts to identify in a hunt. You instantly know it's a Revenant in a hunt. In every single game mode, Revenants are slow when they don't sense you, hear you, or see you, and mega fast as soon as they sense you, hear you, or see you. So if they sense your electronics, if they hear you speaking, or if they see you, they will go from 0 to 100 very, very fast. Very, very easy to identify in a hunt. One hunt and I instantly know it's a Revenant. Super slow, sees me super fast. No line of sight build up, just one set very fast speed. Second fastest ghost in the game, behind a Moroi 0 sanity full line of sight build up. Very scary ghost. Revenant will be definitely a C tier. Outside of a hunt, there's no real way to work out a Revenant. They do regular amounts of ghost events and everything. So yeah, C tier for Revenant. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is an Onryo. Yes. O-R-E-O. Onryo is going to go for me in B tier as well. Maybe an A tier. The thing is with Oreos, you have to be in the ghost room, and you have to, you know what, actually I'm going to put Onryo in a low A tier, almost between A and B right now. Oreos, obviously if you like 3 firelights, then an Onryo has to hunt you within 6 seconds, and that's my personal preference, best way of working out an Onryo. There are times where if you've got a crucifix down and you've got firelights around the crucifix, there's a chance like you've slightly, like the circumference of the firelights might be slightly not as wide as the crucifix, and if it hunts in that tiny gap between the crucifix and the Onryo firelights radius, then it can hunt when there's a firelight there. So I personally like to base Onryo for sure off of 3 firelights going out and then it hunting you within 6 seconds every single time. If you forget what the sequence is, because remember it's a sequence, so you can actually redo Onryo tests. If you light 3 firelights and then the ghost blows all 3 out, and then it hunts, you can actually do it again, because remember, other ghosts could just hunt after that 3rd firelight went out within 6 seconds. They could just decide to hunt you then. So I like to do multiple Onryo tests. If you're in a really hard to get to room, then this can be a bit of a nightmare to do. You can't work out Oreos in hunts. They are completely normal in hunts, like Yureis and Mares. They've got no personality in hunts. So yeah, they can be tricky. I do sometimes struggle getting Oreos. Most of the time it's fine. But yeah, if you do lose the sequence of 3 firelights, my best advice would be to light 1 firelight at a time, wait 6 seconds, relight it. Also, Oreos are the only ghosts that can blow out a firelight within 20 seconds after it's already blown out the firelight. So if it blows out a firelight, you relight it, and then it blows out the firelight again within 20 seconds, you can also you confirm Onryo there and then. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is a Myling. This is a hard ghost to identify. This isn't on the level of Yurei, Mare, and Onryo, but it's definitely a very high B. I find I find Mylings can be a bit tricky to get. It really depends on the map. There are some maps where Mylings feel pretty easy. Some maps where they feel really difficult. So, for example, I actually find Tanglewood, if the ghost is in the garage, it can be quite hard to identify it when you're standing in like the kitchen. However, if it walks out into the back of the map, then like towards the main bedroom and, you know, the baby room and everything, it can be quite easy to work out. But it really depends on the map. Mylings basically are quieter in hunts. They've got, by the way, no personality in the hunts in terms of their speed or visuals. They are completely normal. They have normal line of sight build up, but they are just quieter. Sometimes this is mega easy to work out. I'm like, yeah, that's a Myling. I can barely hear it. It's really close to me. And I can't hear it still. It's only like 5 meters away and I can only just about hear its footsteps. But sometimes it can be tricky. So yeah, Myling's definitely a high B tier. Honestly, I honestly want to like add another section between A. This would go between A and B tier Myling, because Poltergeist is definitely easier than Myling. So is probably a Jinn and a Banshee. It's almost between these two. Mylings can be really tricky. The best way to work them out is to just get used to the way ghosts sound in hunts. And then if you see the ghost pretty close to you and you can't hear the footsteps, or if you use a torch, a lot of people use something called the torch method, where they place a torch down, and if it's flashing or your lights are flashing in the room above you but you can't hear the ghost footsteps, then that's the way to work out Myling. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is a Wraith. Now, I would say Wraith is pretty easy to identify. Now, if you find the ghost room and you place salt everywhere and the ghost isn't changing rooms and it's been in the room for ages, you're still on like 1 point something degrees Celsius, and it's not walking in any salts, then it's pretty easy to identify Wraith. Also, if you're nowhere near the ghost room and something starts chucking around you or your EMF goes off, then it's probably teleported to you. And the only ghost that can do that, or it's a Banshee, it's roamed to you and chucked something, of course. If you're on a different floor to it and something gets chucked next to you or the EMF goes off, it's a Wraith or a Phantom. So they can teleport to you, and then they will never step in salt Wraith. So if it teleports you and then you watch the ghost, because obviously after it teleports you, it roams back to the room. If it doesn't step in salt as well, it's a Wraith. I say Wraiths are pretty easy to identify and never really have problems. In hunts, they are completely normal. There's nothing interesting about them in hunts. Normal looks, normal speeds, normal sound, everything. However, outside of hunts, they're very easy to identify. So I would say a solid C tier. They can't step in salt. They teleport to you. And they can spawn on you, so you've got to be very careful about that. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is a Raiju. Now, Raijus, since the recent updates, have become mega easy to identify. Mega easy to identify. In fact, you can work out a Raiju. I'm almost tempted to put it in D tier. That's how easy they've become. Now, I'm actually going to put it in D tier. Raijus, if you get a ghost event at any point, or even during a hunt, they've got this now. I don't know if it's a bug. I don't know if they added this on purpose, but they've got a bass boosted heartbeat. And you know really quickly, like I say to a lot of people, oh my word, wait, was that heartbeat bass boosted? And I'm like, trust me, you know when it's bass boosted. You're standing in the room with it, it will do a ghost event and you'll hear the heartbeat just like subwoofer on max volume, bass boosted. It will just be, your headphones will be shaking. It'll be so loud. So yeah, that's one way of identifying Raiju. Also, they can hunt at higher sanity. I believe 65 maybe percent sanity. If you've got electronics nearby, it can siphon for energy from the electronics and hunt you at higher sanity than other ghosts. And also in a hunt, they are faster on electronics and normal speed away from electronics with line of sight build up, by the way. So yeah, Raijus will, if you hear the ghost spawn and it's in the ghost room and there's loads of electronics you left there. By the way, by electronics, I mean stuff you brought in, not electronics in the house. If you've got the lights on in the room, it doesn't count. If you brought in, let's say, a thermometer and a torch and stuff, and you hear it really fast, and then it slows down out away from those electronics without seeing you or anything, it just decides to slow down, it's a Raiju. Or Hantu, to be fair. Remember, you've got to be careful. Raijus and Hantus can be quite easy to get wrong because they both change speeds without any line of sight or anything. But Raijus are faster on electronics, normal speed away from them, and they have line of sight build up. So if you hear a ghost that is fast and then goes normal speed, and then you start looping it and then it slowly speeds up, that's going to be a Raiju, basically. So yeah, I'm going to say because of the base boost, In hunts and ghost events, they are I instantly know it's a Raiju from one ghost event now. I'm putting it in D tier as one of the easiest ghosts to identify in the game. The next ghost we are going to be talking about is a shade. Boring ghost. I would say to identify, I don't know if I can put it on the same level as Mare, Yurei's, and Oryo's. I'm going to put Shade in B tier. Shades obviously are mega boring. They can't do any interactions when you're in the ghost room with it. However, do bear in mind, if the shade roams outside of the room, it can interact with items inside the ghost room. So if it goes for a little wander outside the room, you've got a motion sensor down, you see it wanders out, and then something gets chucked in the ghost room with you, that can still be a shade. Shades, they can't do singing events. So this is another way, really easy way of ruling out a shade. If the ghost starts doing the female singing event, which is ring a roses, that really long, like 15-second ghost event, you can rule out a shade. And if it's a male and it goes, oh, that long, great impression, Casson. That long singing event, like 15 plus seconds, you can rule out a shade. This doesn't count for the very short events where they just do a little song for like 3 seconds. It has to be the long event. Bear that in mind. You can rule out a shade straight away. Also, yeah, shades are just mega boring. Pretty easy to identify because when you're in the ghost room with you, you're in the ghost room, they can't hunt you. So your crucifix can't go off when they're in the ghost room with you. And yeah, they're just mega boring. They don't do anything. They've got no personality. They're shy. Super boring, but definitely not bad to identify. Very normal in a hunt, I must add as well. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is a mimic. Now, to identify, I want to put it in D tier because if you bring in a video camera and you see orbs, instantly know it's a mimic. So it's instantly D tier. Very easy. Like you know it's a mimic on no evidence if you see orbs because they're the only ghost that can show evidence on no evidence because it's not actually evidence. The orbs are fake evidence. So that would be D tier. But because let's say you don't necessarily have the camera and you're looking around for the orbs, I'm going to put it in C tier simply because you need to basically wait for a few hunts to identify a mimic. If maybe let's say the orbs, right, may just for some reason be a bit buggy and you don't see them, you kind of just have to wait for multiple hunts for the ghost to do something strange that isn't normal that it did in another hunt. So if the ghost in one hunt was very normal and then in the second hunt was very normal, but in the third hunt was really fast or really slow, you'd be like, hang on a second, this is weird, why is it changed up? So it can sometimes take quite a few hunts to work out mimic. But if you do bring in a video camera, you can instantly tell it's a mimic if you go into the ghost room. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in C tier, not D tier. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is a demon. This is going up here. Demons. Again, they're another ghost like a Yurei where you rely on their ability. Now, demons can technically hunt at any sanity. Any sanity in the game they can hunt. However, they will only do this if they decide to use their ability. Now, they can hunt normally below 70%, and that's not an ability usage. They basically can hunt at anything above 70% sanity as well if they choose to. So sometimes I've had demons, right, that just don't hunt for some reason. Like, they just don't choose to use their ability, and that can be a real nightmare. Stupid demons. But yeah, demons have no personality in hunts. They're completely normal, like a Yurei, Mare, and Onryo. No personality in hunts. Normal speed, normal line of sight build-ups, gradual, normal looks, everything. However, you got to rely on a demon ability for demons, and that's quite stressful. Like, there's a few things you need to know. One, demon can hunt above 50% sanity. It can hunt at any sanity, and can regularly hunt below 70% sanity. Also, if you smudge a demon, it can hunt between a minute and 1:30 seconds after you hit that smudge. Whereas other ghosts cannot hunt to 1:30. A spirit's obviously 3 minutes. But yeah, demon and spirits are the only ghosts that get affected differently with smudges. If you smudge a demon and it hunts under 1:30 seconds, you know it's a demon. Also, the third thing is demons have a higher range on the crucifix. So if you place a crucifix outside of the ghost room and it's not even covering the ghost room, and you know the ghost is definitely in the ghost room and it spawns, then and it sets off the crucifix, then you might be like, oh, hang on, that's a bit weird. The crucifix didn't even cover the ghost room, and it prevented the ghost from hunting. So that's another way to work out a demon. Also, the final thing is a demon can hunt after, let's say a ghost ends a hunt. Normal ghosts can't hunt for 25 seconds, whereas a demon can hunt after 20 seconds if it uses its ability. So that's another thing to be wary of. If a ghost hunts just before 25 seconds after the previous hunt ended, then that's also a demon ability. But yeah, in general, they're very, very tricky. They can be very tricky to identify. It's usually down to using their abilities. If you use your crucifixes and your incenses, it can be very stressful trying to work out a demon. So that's going to go in a A tier, probably below Yurei and Mare, and above Onryo. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is a yokai. I don't like yokais. I can find them to be very annoying. They're like a high B tier, I would say. Maybe even a low A tier. Yokais, yeah. Yokais can be pretty annoying. Now, there's no way to identify a yokai outside of a hunt, other than if you speak to the ghost and it hunts around below 80% sanity but above 50% sanity, that might be a yokai using its ability and hunting. I generally don't use that because I don't really speak to the ghost. I identify yokais via doing yokai test. If you're wondering what a yokai test is, if you stand hidden in a spot and the yokai is within is pretty close to you, and use your global pitch to talk, like static key button, or you speak to the ghost or anything, the yokai is like deaf and can't sense electronics, so it won't actually necessarily run to you. Also, yokais are a bit dumber than other ghosts. They seem to just not really run towards you very often. They just see, like, especially if you use electronics and the yokai's close enough to, well, for a normal ghost to sense it, but a yokai wouldn't be able to sense it, it tends to actually run away more. Basically, the way to work out yokai, for example, let's imagine we're in Tanglewood right now, and we're standing behind the island, and the ghost is by the entrance to the basement and the laundry room. You know, that little spot there. If you spam your electronics and the ghost runs down into the basement or into the garage through the drying room, then or even back towards the back of the map, then you're like, right, well, a normal ghost would run straight to me here. This is a yokai. So they can be a bit tricky. I've actually struggled with yokais in the past for no evidence. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in a very high B tier, because sometimes you might do yokai tests and the yokai might just run to you just out of chance. So it can be a bit deceiving. I like to do multiple yokai tests to be sure. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is an Obake. Now, an Obake outside of a hunt on no evidence is impossible to work out. There's no way of working it out outside of a hunt. It's very, very normal. In a hunt, it will shapeshift. So it's very easy during a hunt. I'm going to put it in B tier because it is very easy during a hunt, but impossible to work out outside of a hunt. You have to look at the ghost in a hunt to work out an Obake on no evidence. Obviously, if you're playing evidence, you might be able to get an Obake handprint, which is 6 fingers, or an Obake fingerprint, which is 2 fingers on a light switch, or it's not leaving a handprint on a door when you know it's meant to leave a handprint on the door. Basically, Obakes have a chance of actually not showing like footprints, for example, or handprints on a door or a light switch, even when it flicks up a light switch or pushes a door. It has a chance of doing that. But generally, on no evidence, which is what I'm mainly focusing on, they are only identifiable during a hunt. You do generally do hunts in no evidence. You have to work out on most of the ghosts. So yeah, Obake's going to go in a solid low B tier, potentially even a high C tier. I might put it in C tier actually. Yeah, because they are very easy to identify during a hunt, but relatively easy to identify during a hunt. They've got a small chance of shapeshifting. I believe, I've heard, they actually shapeshift at the same time every hunt. So if you know when it's meant to shapeshift and you start a timer start as soon as this hunt starts, and it should shapeshift at the same time that it did in the previous hunt. Apparently, I haven't tested this. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is a phantom. I would say a phantom is pretty easy to identify. There's two ways of you can identify a phantom outside of a hunt. You can identify a phantom, and it's probably going to go in a low C tier, almost like they are very easy to identify. Definitely above mimic. We'll rearrange each layer, I think, at the end. I'm going to say phantom, yeah, in C tier. Simply because phantoms can teleport to you anywhere on the map. So what they do is they teleport to you, they leave an EMF reading like a Wraith does as well. And then they will roam back to the ghost room. However, they will step in salt, unlike a Wraith. So if you place salt between you and the ghost room, and then it steps in salt as it roams back, then you know it's Phantom. Basically, if the ghost teleports you and interacts with you on a different floor to the ghost room, then you know it's either a Wraith or a Phantom. And then if it steps in salt, it's a Phantom, because you can rule out Wraith. So that can be quite an easy way of identifying Phantom. Now, also, if you take a photo of the ghost, you can instantly rule out a Phantom. Well, you can instantly rule out a Phantom or decide on Phantom via whether the ghost is in the photo. So if you take a photo of the ghost or a video of the ghost now, and the ghost isn't in the video or isn't in the photo when you look in the journal, or if the ghost just disappears, because the ghost disappears basically when you go take the photo or the video in the ghost event, but the song continues playing, or the ghost event continues but the ghost isn't there anymore, and it definitely says 3-star ghost photo or 3-star ghost video, not 3-star, sorry, the star system's gone. If it says ghost on the photo or video, then and the ghost isn't there, then it's a Phantom, basically. So that's another way of working out Phantom. That can be, it really depends if you get a ghost event early game. You might not get a ghost event. Now, in a hunt, very easy to identify, very, very hard to see. You will know straight away. They don't blink for like 2 to 3 seconds between blinks. Like, you'll see the ghost, then it will disappear for ages, and then it'll pop up and then disappear again. Very hard to loop a Phantom. They are very, very hard to see in a hunt. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is a Moroi. Now, Moroi I'm going to put in B tier. Basically, Morois, they hunt at 50% sanity, like other ghosts. They are very normal looking in a hunt. However, Morois are normal speed at around 50% sanity, like it's slightly slower. Very hard. It's like slow twin kind of speed. So they can be a bit deceiving. You might think they might be slow twin, and if you don't really know much about ghost speeds, you might just think it's a normal speed ghost. So when you're at around 50% sanity, they're just slightly slower than normal ghosts. But then when your sanity starts dropping towards 0, they get faster and faster and faster. At 0% sanity, they are pretty fast. They're not crazy fast, but they're pretty fast. But they have insane line of sight build up. Like, they will gradually build up speed faster and faster to a point where it's the fastest ghost in the game. When you get to 0% sanity and it's built up its full line of sight, it's really, really fast. So yeah, that's a Moroi for you. Also, a Moroi will, if you smudge it, it will be smudged for 50% longer than other ghosts. So let's say you've got tier 2 incense. A tier 2 incense, when you smudge a ghost, lasts for 5 seconds. If it smudges for 50% longer, which is 7.5 seconds, then it can only be a Moroi. All other ghosts are 5 seconds. A Moroi is 7.5 seconds with a tier 2 smudge. So that's a really easy way to identify a Moroi. That makes it a bit easier as well. But yeah, again, there's not really a way to work out a Moroi other than in a hunt. So for that reason, I'm sticking in a B tier. Actually, one thing I forgot to mention as well is another way to test for Moroi is if you pop sanity meds during a hunt, the ghost will actually slow down because your sanity is increasing. Therefore, the ghost is slowing down because, again, Morois are affected by sanity. The lower your sanity, the faster the ghost is. Also, if your sanity is dropping really fast compared to normal, you might be Moroi cursed. So if you heard the ghost in a parabolic or used a spirit box, obviously we're talking about no evidence, so you wouldn't use a spirit box. But if you did use a spirit box or a parabolic, then the Moroi actually will go down, it will drop your sanity, I think, twice as fast. So that's another way to work out Moroi. If your sanity seems to have plummeted and you've got hunted what feels like quite early and without any ghost events, it might be a Moroi. The next ghost we're going to be talking about is a spirit. Spirits are mega boring, like shades. I'd actually say they're pretty... You kind of have to rely on... You have to rely on smudges for spirits. I'd say they're in B tier. They can be really annoying to identify. The only way to identify a spirit, and this can be quite dodgy sometimes, is you have to incense the ghost, and a spirit cannot hunt you for 3 minutes after you hit that incense. So don't have to wait till the end of the hunt to start a timer. As soon as you hit that incense, you start a timer for 3 minutes, and a spirit cannot hunt you for that entire 3-minute period. Now, the reason why this isn't necessarily always viable is other ghosts can just be lazy at hunting. They might just choose to not hunt you for 3 minutes. I've even had a demon that's not hunted me for over 3 minutes many times after you smudge the ghost. So that can be a little bit deceiving. I like to use maybe 2 or 3 smudges to confirm this. So it takes like 3 hunts of smudging the ghost, waiting 3 minutes, doesn't hunt me, smudge the ghost again, wait 3 minutes, hasn't hunted me. Okay, this is kind of becoming a spirit now. If you've done like 2 or 3 hunts and it's not hunted you for 3 minutes, it's a very, very high likelihood it's a spirit. I'd almost definitely pick spirit after 3 smudges with 3 minutes of no hunts. So yeah, spirit is, that's the only way to identify it. Other than that, it's completely normal. Really boring. Almost tempted to put it into A tier, but we'll stick it in. We kind of rely on its ability, so I kind of want to stick it in a low A tier. Can be really annoying. Oh, well, actually, the other thing is, I'm going to put it in a high B tier. The other thing is with spirit is when you smudge it, it actually events more frequently. It seems to event all the time when you smudge a spirit. Yeah, for some reason, if as long as you're on the same floor as the ghost, of course, spirits will just constantly event over and over and over. I found. Now, this doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen most times. When you smudge it, it starts, and you're waiting in that 3-minute period. It seems to be eventing all the time. So that's another way to work out spirit, and that makes it a bit easier. So I'm going to put it in a big high B tier. The second to last ghost we're going to be talking about is the twins. I think this ghost can be quite tricky to identify. I'm going to put it in maybe a low B tier. It's not crazy easy to identify. It's not crazy hard to identify. Twins outside of a hunt, you can obviously get a twin interaction where the ghost will throw 2 things at once. Now, you could mistake this for a poltergeist, so you've got to be a bit careful because poltergeist obviously the only ghost that can chuck multiple items at once, apart from twins that can chuck 2 items at once. 2 items, 2 twins chucking 2 things at once. That's one thing to do. Also, if a ghost is chucking stuff like all over the map, like you have a door opening in one room with an item throwing in one room, but then on the other side of the floor or even downstairs, you're getting an item chucked as well, you might be like, hang on, why has that happened? You might think, firstly, is this a phantom or a wraith and it's teleported to me while I was downstairs and now it's chucking stuff? Or is it a twin and it's now chucking things in different parts of the house? So that's one way to identify outside of a hunt. And then in a hunt, they're only 15%, I believe, faster and slower. So twins can be a bit tricky to get. I like to do multiple hunts generally with twins and work out if you definitely have a slow twin and a fast twin. Basically, there's a 50% chance every single hunt it picks the fast twin and a 50% chance it picks the slow twin. So every hunt, the ghost will either be slightly faster or slightly slower. It will never be normal speed and has normal line of sight build up like other ghosts. Twins can be tricky. You also might mistake twins, a slow twin for a Moroi or a fast twin for a Moroi, depending on what sanity you're on. A Moroi, obviously, if you're on 50% sanity, it's like kind of like it's almost the same speed as a slow twin. But then if you're on, I don't know, like 40% sanity, it might be the same speed as like a fast twin. So you got to be careful with that. It can be mistaken for Moroi. And that's basically the only way you really work out twins. You can use the interaction board, I think it's called, to see that like that double spike. I don't really use that personally, but I think the best way to identify a twin personally is the way I said: check it in a hunt, see if it changes. It's 2 different speeds without line of sight. This is, and yeah, I would say it's relatively easy to identify. I don't tend to struggle with twins that much. It's a lowish B tier. And finally, guess what's going in S tier? A Goryo. Worst ghost in Phasmophobia, in my opinion. Even worse than the Shade. This ghost is awful. Awful to identify. Goryos suck. They absolutely suck. So the only way to identify a Goryo, I like to call it, or a Snorio, is that it doesn't change rooms. That's the only way you identify it and no evidence. So if the ghost changes rooms, okay, great, you can rule out a Goryo. But a lot of the time, the ghost might just not change rooms. Now, if this is a basement ghost, for some weird reasons, ghosts don't like leaving basements. So Goryos can be really annoying. Like you could get a mare that's in the basement that breaks the lights and then doesn't change rooms, and you can't work out a mare. Like you literally can't work it out. You can flick light switches and it won't flick it down because the lights are broken. Apparently they can't do their ability when the lights are broken. I'm yet to test that. I've never actually had a mare that has flicked down a light that I've instantly turned on when it's broken the lights in the room. So it might be true. But yeah, Goryos just can't change rooms, and that's their only trait. But you've got to remember, other ghosts might just not change rooms. You honestly, with a Goryo, my average Goryo game time's like 35 to 40 minutes on like a really important game. Like I'm trying to do like a win streak, and I do not want to get it wrong. I could be sitting in the game for like 35, 40 minutes, testing every other ghost, and then being like, right, well, it's not changed rooms, it's a Goryo. Awful ghost. In evidence, it's a bit easier. Obviously, you can get out a video camera and film it, and it will show up in the video camera, but not in person. So it's quite easy to identify in that way. But yeah, generally, Goryo's cheeks. Awful ghost. Completely normal in hunts, by the way. Normal line of sight build up, gradual line of sight build up, normal looking, normal sounding. Everything's normal. They don't roam away from their rooms apparently much, but that's not really a very viable way of working out Goryo, let's be honest. So yeah, worst ghost, straight S tier. If you enjoyed the video, I'm going to do more tier lists. I do tutorial videos as well. If you ever need help with no evidence or even just evidence game modes, I've got tutorials for loads of things. Feel free to leave comments as to what kind of videos you want to see. And yes, I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you soon. Leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you later.